Hello there, welcome back to Valley Boys TCG. So today I thought I'd dive back into the Godzilla card game, and it's been a while since I did the how to play. And first off, any of you who watched the how to play Godzilla card game and learned from our channel's video, thank you for tuning in. That is by far the probably most viewed video on this channel. I did not expect it to get the traction it did, so really do appreciate anybody who liked, commented, or just watched the video. Hopefully it was helpful to you. So this video is meant to kind of add on to that. Sure, maybe now you know how to play the game, but there are some niche mechanics and little things that maybe aren't quite clear right out the gate for beginners. So we're gonna dive in today and do kind of like an intermediate rules type thing. I've been wanting to do this for a while just to talk about clarifying some mechanics. Now that we're in set 3, we've added a few mechanics since set 1, and also talking about some card rulings that may not be completely clear right out the gate, because let's be honest, some of the English translations are not that easy to follow. And then lastly, we actually do have our very first errata card, which though the errata I don't think makes that big of a difference in the meta, though there is one deck I can think of that maybe it does make a difference. But let's go ahead and dive into the video. So the first thing I want to talk about today is mechanics. Now when the game launched, there were two main mechanics, one for red and one for blue, and those are burst and evolution. So let's take a look at those, just to clarify these mechanics. Specifically tailored for red. Red is the only one that really utilizes the burst mechanic. So the way burst works is it's kind of like a temporary form change where you enter a monster of a different rank over your current ranked monster, and then it goes away at the end of the turn or at the beginning of the next end phase. Now, this I think is where the confusion is. That text at the beginning of your next end phase can lead to some confusion. Some people are thinking, well, next end phase, that must mean next turn. No, it's the current turn. Now this could be due to a rough translation, or things don't always translate as easily. So your next end phase is obviously the end phase of your current turn. Now the reason that may matter in the future is perhaps there will be ways to burst on your opponent's turn. Currently there isn't. So it feels like, hey, the text explanation is bad. But if there is a way to burst on your opponent's turn in future card sets, then this wording does matter, because it'll make a difference during your next end phase, which is your next turn. Obviously, if you're bursting on your opponent's turn, that would be a difference, but ignore that part. We currently do not have a way to burst on your opponent's turn. You only burst on your turn. So to make things very simple, when you burst, you enter a monster of a different rank over the rank that it specifies. Now this is another thing to make note of. Burst does not always mean one level higher. You'll note that some bursts go down a level. The most common burst obviously that came out of set 1 was, let's say you have a rank 2 monster that says burst 1, or a rank 4 that says burst 3. You are bursting to the next level and then you power back down at the end of the turn. Now that's not always the case. Especially when set 2 dropped the Shin Godzilla, you'll notice that the rank 2 actually bursts over 3. So it was a way to power down. Now red does have more than one monster card that is like a rank 3 that bursts from a 4, or as notable in the Shin combo, a rank 2 that bursts from the 3. But it's not that common. Most bursts rank up, but there are a few that rank down. Now the important thing to remember about the burst mechanic for red is it is a temporary power up, so you don't keep that monster's threat level for their opponent's turn for their counter phase, but it is entering a monster, so you do get a rage off of that. So the two main reasons to burst are 1, gain a rage, and 2, gain the enter effect. Just about every burst monster does have an enter effect. So really it's a way to get those enter effects and get a free rage, if you will. And then that monster does go to discard at the end of the turn, so you'll have that in case you need it for GAM or something like that. So that is red burst. Now on blue side, they have evolution. Now evolution's pretty straightforward. I think for most people, they understand how evolution works, but just to clarify some things in case you're a little hazy. Now evolution triggers at the start of your main phase. So that means after you draw for turn, before you complete any other game actions. So if you have a battle card with evolution at the start of your main phase, it triggers for you to search for an evolution card that meets the criteria of the stated card on the field. So for example, if you have a Mothra that says Evolution 7, then you search your deck for another battle card that has the Mothra subtext and is a rank 7 or lower. Now that's an important thing that I think a lot of people miss on Evolution. So if you have Evolution 7, you can evolve into a 7 or lower, which means you can evolve to a smaller form or the exact same form, which I think is very important for, let's say, the new Mothra cards. I know that I like to use the Rainbow Mothra, who has Evolution 8, not just to go into the Eternal Mothra, but sometimes the green Mothra Imago. So I can go from a 7 to another 7. I can power down to a Mothra 5 if I wanted to. It just depends on what you need in the situations. Now, obviously, most of the time, you're probably going to evolve into the higher form, but there might be certain niche situations where you need to go smaller or you need to just shift into another one. Again, the Rainbow Mothra evolving into another Rainbow Mothra is not a bad play because you get the pushback effect again. Destroy is pretty vertical, so you'll probably go into the next one anyway, but I think Mothra is the one that really can play with that evolution mechanic the best and probably has the biggest card pool of evolution targets. All right, now let's talk about Green's mechanic. Now, you may think that Green doesn't have a specific mechanic, but it does. Revenge. Revenge is something that dropped in set 2 with the inclusion of Green. And now Revenge has a very interesting sort of, for the most part, it's a discard mechanic, but there are some 1 or 2 that I can think of that don't really follow that. So the way Revenge works is, it states when destroyed by a card effect or monster movement. Now that means when it's getting stomped on, when you trample your own card by invading or advancement, whenever you step on your card and destroy it that way, then you can trigger Revenge. This is important because that means Revenge does not trigger if you enter a new battle card over an existing battle card. Remember, that is something you can do in this card game. Let's say you have a certain battle card on the field and you want something else to take that space, specifically like Zone 8. Zone 8 is a very contentious spot that you want something that can utilize 8. There are plenty of battle cards that get boosts if they are on Zone 8. Let's say you have a plain vanilla on Zone 8 and you want to include something that gets a power up on Zone 8. You can choose to just enter another battle card over it and discard the previous one. Now that's the thing. It is not being destroyed, it is discarded. So Revenge does not work when you enter a battle card over it. Revenge only works if it's destroyed by an effect or if it gets trampled. Now, Revenge is mainly used to pull things back from the discard. You'll notice that a lot of Revenge, typically Ghidorah cards, a lot of our Revenge cards state that when destroyed, you can pull back a Ghidorah or pull something back from your discard pile. Not all Revenge cards have this effect, but most of them do. One exception I can think of is the new green rank 5 Mothra that with Revenge, it removes your opponent's rage or lowers your opponent's rage. So that I would say is one exception to the rule. I will say of the 3 color mechanics, Revenge currently feels probably like one of the weakest, but I think it has potential to become one of the strongest. Now, stay with me here. This is not, this is not exacts, but imagine a Revenge effect that says, Revenge, push your opponent back 1 zone. That could be very, very powerful, setting up those Revenge cards in Zone 8. Now again, this doesn't exist yet, but this is my brainstorming to power up Revenge, is have some sort of Revenge ability that says when destroyed, move your opponent back 1 zone. Now I know the pushback is more of a blue thing, so it could be a potential green-blue Mothra type thing in the future to power that deck up more, even though I think it's pretty nice the way it sits. But imagine having a card with Revenge, push your opponent back 1 zone. Play that card on Zone 8, makes the invasion that much trickier for your opponent. Again, this is just me spitballing here. This is just me, I guess, daydreaming of how to power up Mothra even more because I have been having a lot of fun with that deck. But there's a lot of room for improvement for Revenge because, in my opinion, Revenge is probably one of the weakest ones. But that's just my viewpoint of Revenge. Now, some other new mechanics that came out in Set 3 are Resonance and Base. Resonance is a very interesting new mechanic that basically allows multicolored deck building, but with some certain restrictions. Now, the restrictions for multicolored deck building or Resonance deck building does vary depending on which deck you're building. Now, to figure out what your restrictions are, you simply need to look at what the rank 1 monster says. As of right now for Set 3, I believe there are only 3 multicolor deck possibilities. So you have your Kiryu or Mechagodzilla, the weapon mecha build, which is red and blue. You have Mothra, which is blue and green. And then you have the Sacred Guardian Beast, which it gives us green and red. Oddly, the most flexibility because this is the only one, I would say, of the new Resonance one that actually changes what your monster is. You're not just stuck with one monster. The Sacred Guardian Beast actually takes different forms. You have Mothra, you have Ghidorah, so you have different forms you can take with the Sacred Guardian Beast, which is very interesting and very new for the card game, in my opinion. Now, you must satisfy the conditions of the rank 1 card for your whole deck building, and most of these Resonance have 2 main conditions. 1, the restriction on what it can go into the monster deck, and 2, the restriction on how you build your main deck. So, for example, being restricted to weapons and mechas for both, actually, on that one. Mothra states, obviously, you have to have Mothra monsters, and then your deck has to have 10 or more strategy cards. And then the Sacred Guardian Beast, well, you just have to have the Sacred Guardian Beast tag, but you need to have a rank 5 or higher battle cards. So again, each one has a restriction, at least currently, one restriction for the monster deck, one restriction for your main deck. But Resonance is, of course, the very newest mechanic, and I think that one probably has a little more question mark because it changes your deck building and it makes it not as simple, but it does spice things up a bit for the current card game. Now, the last mechanic I want to talk about is base. So base is a new effect that changes the way strategy cards play, or rather how long they stay on the field. Typically, strategy cards, you use them for the turn, they stay in your strategy zone during your opponent's turn, and then at your next start of turn or your next turn, they get discarded. Base doesn't quite do that. Base actually stays locked in your strategy zone unless it meets two certain requirements. So the two ways you actually remove your base cards are either through direct effects. And so now in set 3, we do have effects that delete or remove strategy cards out of your opponent's strategy zone. And then we also have the text on the base cards themselves that say, if a monster were to invade into zone 6 or 8, destroy this card. Now, the important thing to note there is it says if a monster invades, that means you or your opponent, and it'll destroy any bases. So if you or your opponent decide to invade into zone 6, 7, or 8, and both of you have base cards, it will destroy all bases on the field. So that's important to make note of. So that's it for the mechanics portions that I want to discuss. Hopefully that made it clear if there was any foggy areas. If you still have any questions, feel free to drop the questions below. But now I want to look at some card clarifications. Think of this as the FAQ section. So there are a few cards in this game that maybe they're not quite clear on their intentions right off the bat. And again, this goes back to sometimes it's just translation errors, sometimes it's just poorly worded. So let's look at a couple of those. The first one that I think that comes up very often comes all the way back from set 1, and that is destroy all monsters. So let's take a look at destroy all monsters. Destroy all monsters states, when your monster card invades this turn, destroy one of your opponent's battle cards. Now, the important thing to note here is that it's not when invading. Typically, when invading actions resolve per movement. So if you invade 2, you get the effect twice. This isn't like that. This is when you invade. It doesn't say when invading. It says when you invade. So whether you invade 1 step or 2 step, it's still only destroying 1 card. The other thing, and very important to note, is that you cannot win from 7 in this card, okay? This isn't like burning Godzilla's Rampage. You have to finish resolving the effect before you get the second half, which means in order to destroy something, you have to invade. Invasion is all one motion, so you have to finish your invasion first and then destroy the monster. So if you're on 7 and you do a 2-step, you're only gonna get 1 step of invasion, then you can destroy, say they have something on 8, you can destroy that, and that's it. So you can't win from 7. That is very important. I know most people think, hey, is this a win from 7? Is this an auto win from 7? No. Unfortunately, no. This is a move up, pop something. Helps get rid of really sticky cards that have high levels that you can't target that easy and you can't line up the heat ray, but it will not win you from zone 7, and it is unusable from area 8, honestly. The next one I want to talk about is a fellow white card and a new card to the set, Odo Island. So this one's very interesting and a potentially very powerful card, but there is one interaction that you have to make note of. This is a base card. At the beginning of your counter phase, you may play up to 1 Godzilla battle card from your hand. What makes this so powerful is it ignores one game mechanic, and that is the area that your opponent's monster is. Typically, to play these battle cards, you have to play them once your opponent reaches that certain zone. A lot of really strong Godzilla battle cards tend to be zone 6 or higher. Trickier to get them on board, especially if you have countered your opponent or have slowed them down. There's very strong Godzilla 8s in the game. This gets them online easy. So with this, at the start of your counter phase, you can play that powerful rank 8 Godzilla card regardless of where your opponent is on the board. Now, the important thing to note here is that is the only mechanic that it ignores. It does not ignore other restricting elements that the card may have. Now, what restricting elements could I be referring to? That is the tried and true set 1 staple, Godzilla against Mechagodzilla. Odo Island can play out GAM. You can play GAM off of this, but you still have to meet the 8 monster card requirement as stated on GAM. Odo Island will attempt to play it, but GAM will prevent you from playing it if you do not have those cards in trash. So make sure that you understand that yes, you can play Godzilla against Mechagodzilla, or GAM, off of the Odo Island, but you do have to make sure that you meet the other requirement of the battle card itself. So if you have any battle cards that have those restrictions, that you have to be in a certain zone or certain things in order to play it, Odo does not overlook that. The base card just lets you play it. The battle card itself has its own set of restrictions, so make sure that both meet the requirements. Another set 3 card that I want to talk about is one that I think could be very, very powerful, but it has a weird wording. Godzilla Jr. Godzilla Jr. is a rank 7 blue battle card that came out in set 3. Now this one has a very interesting mechanic in that it works almost like evolution, or has a semi-evolution-esque effect that it can enter on top of a certain battle card without trampling it or destroying it. The effect functions like evolution in the fact that you can play it over Little Godzilla, and that's how and that's really how you get it powered up. You can play it over Little Godzilla with the rank reduced by 2, which is also really powerful because then it becomes a rank 5 to play and makes it online much easier if you're entering it over a Little Godzilla, which you could play Little Godzilla as a 5 and then play this right over it same turn and just automatically get the boost. Now, the notable thing here is that it only enters safely over Little Godzilla, not Baby Godzilla. There is a difference there. Baby Godzilla and Little Godzilla are not the same thing. Baby Godzilla does have evolution into Little Godzilla, and then from there you can enter Godzilla Jr. over that, which makes it a very, very powerful card in itself, because if you have Baby Godzilla evolve into Little Godzilla and then are able to, in the same turn, enter Godzilla Jr. over that Little Godzilla, you have a 16k big counter power on that one stack, because it gets boosted for each card underneath. And obviously that's one way to get 2 cards underneath. In the future, if there are ways to just add cards under battle cards, this thing could get pretty cracked. But that's a worry for future card design. I don't think we have that in the works yet, but that could be pretty crazy, that Godzilla Jr. could be the most powerful counter card for blue, potentially. But we'll see what comes up of it. Onto green cards that I want to look at. Zilla is a very interesting one. Zilla is kind of hilarious in that it just kind of, the mechanic of hiding, shifting, and dying in case it meets a real Godzilla. I think it's just a funny kind of card design. But let's look at the card. So, Zilla states, at the beginning of your end phase, move this card to an adjacent zone horizontal to the zone that this card currently occupies. Then, if this card is in a zone adjacent to your monster card, destroy that card. So basically, this card can only move left to right, and if you play it in, let's say, zone 6, 7, or 8, you're going to be very limited in where you can move. So it's going to run out of space very fast. Now, the reason I want to talk about this is that the movement happens at the beginning of your end phase. This is before your end of turn advancement. So you want to make sure that you sequence things right, that you enter the end phase. First, you have to move Zilla because it is the beginning of your end phase. Then you advance your monster. Then you draw your cards at the end of turn. So you have to make sure you move it to where it won't end up next to your monster card. What makes this card interesting is that mechanic seems very weird. Why would you want to move left and right? It could be to line up next to certain monsters or next to certain cards that would power it up. But I'm also thinking, and again, this is my spitballing, thinking about future card design. What if we have a future green Zilla monster card that states, if one of your Zilla battle cards was destroyed this turn, end of turn, gain a rage or something like that, then you could strategically use this card to end of turn advance next to your monster card. It blows up, and now your end of turn effect for the monster card triggers to do an effect. Again, this is not how the card works currently. This is not a mechanic in the game, but this is just me thinking, hey, how do we make this card more viable? Again, this is just me thinking about future card design that could make this card more relevant or viable, but doesn't exist, not a problem. The main thing I want to state about this is you move left or right before your end of turn advancement. So just clarifying the order of operations here. The last card I want to talk about today is Ghidorah, the new Ghidorah that came out here in set 3. Now, this clarification was actually stated by the official page, but I want to hammer it in again here because maybe you didn't see this ruling clarification. This Ghidorah, rank 3, is not a King Ghidorah. It cannot go into the monster King Ghidorah. It's created for the Sacred Guardian Beast, and it can only go into the Sacred Guardian Beast. It does have that subtext, and you'll notice that it has the subtext or the subname Ghidorah, not King Ghidorah. That's the very important thing to note. King Ghidorah can only enter into another King Ghidorah. So this card does not work in green unless you have it just to pitch for rage, I guess, but then that's just a waste of space. So do not put this card in green Ghidorah. It also does not count as a King Ghidorah in the discard, so it has essentially no synergy with green Ghidorah as we know it. It is only meant to be used in the Sacred Guardian Beast. So just something of note to make. Don't count it, don't use it. Keep it away from King Ghidorah. He's not a king. Now the last thing I want to talk about in this video is erratas. We finally got our first errata in this card game. And the errata is for the strategy card Despair. Despair was a set 2 red strategy card, rank 3, that destroyed things. The way the card read before, if your monster card has 2 or more rage, destroy one of your opponent's battle cards that occupies a zone before the zone your monster currently occupies. So for example, if you were in zone 4, it can pop something that is in zones 1 through 3. It wasn't good. When the card dropped, people looked at it and thought, why would you want that? This just doesn't feel that great. I mean, you could target certain things that maybe you weren't lined up for the heat ray, but it just felt like a not that great card. But the errata changed that. The errata now states, if your monster card has 2 or more rage, destroy one of your opponent's battle cards that is occupying a zone at or before the zone your monster card is currently in. So that means if you were at 4, it could delete something that is in zones 1 through 4, which is important because if you're on zone 8, you can play this and pop something that's on your opponent's zone 8 and go for the invasion. So this makes the card a little more playable. This gives it a little more life. Is it great? No, but it is a low-cost strategy card, and that may be important in case you're playing something like the Frozen Godzilla counter and you're playing a lot of red strategy cards. This is a good low-cost strategy card that you can play really quick out the gate. So something to think about. Despair is now more playable. The only deck I think that people would really run it in is, again, if you're running the Frozen and you haven't gotten your hand on like Godzilla Bites, because I know our locals did not get that set of promos, so I have not had my hands on one Godzilla Bite, but if you're looking for some low-cost strategy cards to throw in, Despair is not a bad option for that deck. So if you made it here to the end of the video, thank you for sticking around. Hopefully some of these clarifications helped clear up any confusion you had on some of these cards. Hopefully I helped you on your Godzilla card game journey. Like I said, you know, the Learn to Play video that we launched here did really well, and I just wanted to follow up because I think, you know, now that we're 2 more sets in, rules have expanded, card pool has expanded, effects have expanded. So it's good to just go in and touch on some things that, you know, especially newer players or less seasoned players may not have been completely clear on. Again, I want to thank you for tuning in, watching our videos, enjoying the content. Please consider liking and subscribing to the channel, helping us grow. Leave a comment below. Let me know, did this help clarify anything for you? Are there any other rules or any confusing cards that you think we need to be clarified in future videos? I would love to do a follow-up and expand on some of the cards I talked about here, or talk about other cards as the card pool grows. Maybe there's some stuff that I missed that needs more clarification, or maybe there's something that I may have stated wrong. If I'm wrong on something, please call me out. Let me know in the comments below. But again, thank you for watching. Hope you enjoyed the content. Please come back for the next one.